and people started to understand that we are 10 toes deep into this work of cultivating emotional regulation for men, and particularly black and brown boys. And they deserve it, and it's not an anomaly. And I think that over time, everyone started to follow.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Grow Healthy, Help People podcast, a podcast that Cordis puts on to learn more about our nonprofit leaders and what they are doing in the world to make a difference and change things in their communities. Today, we are here with Barry from the Bro Experience. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us all where you're calling from.
Oh man, I'm calling from, and I call it the country, so don't mind me, but I'm calling from the great country of Brooklyn, New York.
Awesome. Wonderful. So good. Oh man, I know we talked about that when we first talked. Like I have my somewhat southern accent, and you're from New York. It's different.
Yes. I got the New York accent here.
Yes, absolutely. That's so great. So, well, before we get into all the amazing things you guys are doing at the Bro Experience, I want you to tell me a little bit about how you got here. So, what did your life look like leading up to running a nonprofit? How did you get to be where you are today?
Wow, that is a really big question, but I would say that I was, a typical young man growing up in the urban community, and unfortunately in a community that is often under resourced. So you always had to create spaces and figure out what the meaning of life was. But nonetheless, I think that I had a pretty cool childhood. Growing up, and had a lot of friends. I was always the guy that liked to connect people or create things from nothing, and I feel like that is kind of what led me into the work that I do today. And then I also, at a young age, had a lens on things that weren't working that would always, push me to want to be different and want things in my community to be different. I remember volunteering with the ambulance corps in my neighborhood, and because there was a lot of gun shootings and things like that. So how can I protect and save my friends if those things happened? Or just growing up in a household and my father trying to figure out, how to take care of us as a man of color. So I always got these messages that, my community needed more. And I think that is indicative to who I am and why I do what I do. Like even in my early 20s, I opened up a barbershop, right? And I think that the reason why I did that, not knowing then, I thought it was a cool business, but I really was trying to create space. Because I often went to the barbershop to see generations of men convening. So I think that translated into how I created the organization we now know as the Bro Experience Foundation. It is a safe, authentic space where ages and different demographics of men get to come together and we get to build.
That's incredible. I love so much that you had such a strong calling at such an early age that it led you directly on this path, like that you just knew it was in your soul, like this is what I want to do. These are the changes I want to see. I think that's incredible. So tell us more about what you guys do over at the Bro Experience, the programs that you have, and just really what you're doing to create that space for people and make this change.
Yeah, it was really birthed out of like the childhood. That was the unconscious, right? But I think consciously I seen women across the country in my mid-20s and my early 30s, y'all were creating space for each other at like rates that I was just like, wow. You had like the Black Girls Rock, or even if those things weren't necessarily like certain things weren't positive, but you had like Housewives and Basketball Wives. Like there was always either on TV or in the space in certain spaces, women were creating and coming together and trying to figure it out. And I've never seen men do that. So that started to like burn a passion into me and wanting to create space for my peers, and then realizing that sometimes it's more about creating space for younger guys. I was like, I want to create something for younger guys. I didn't have the name then. But during the pandemic, I started to think about, well, what is it that you actually do? So I do cognitive behavior therapy, and I'm a great mentor. And I feel like I got that skill from being a barber. And then that's how I came up with the Bro Experience Foundation, which stands for Brothers Redefining Opportunity. And in that work, like I mentioned, we create authentic, brave, and connected spaces for young men of color. And we do it through cognitive behavior therapy and critical consciousness. So the whole premise is just like to really create a utopia for guys and communities that they don't often feel seen, heard, or protected. And a lot of times they take those feelings of not feeling those things into their own hands, and often they either get in trouble for it or they just kind of like isolate from community. So what we do here with our work, we actually give them a sense of self, and we let them know that they have a community and they actually have a space that they belong to. And we do it in different program areas. We have our Little Bro program, which is we work with 3rd to 6th grade boys through literacy and character development. We have the Bro Project, which is an 18 to 24-year-old program where we support young men who are totally disconnected from community. They may not have a high school diploma, or if they do, they just trying to find their way in their path because things just kind of like took a turn. Or it's for those guys who do have negative police interaction, who are really trying to shift their lives. We work with those guys for 1 year in a Rites of Passage program. And then we work with fathers. We call it the Daddy and Me Project, where we meet with fathers like quarterly. We make sure that they have resources and they have access to the Wellness Center. Anytime they need to do like a resume or they need just support with finding work, they're able to come to the Bro Space Wellness Center and get that support. And that's the work. That's what we do. And those are the programs that we look to expand and bring more to community.
That's incredible. I love all of that. And going back, you're so right in what you said at the beginning there. It's so natural for women to create those spaces and to just come together and have this camaraderie and like talk about things, and it's just not natural for men to do that. And men are just in this position where they're looking at the men who've come before them and how did they respond to things or react to things, and that's all they know. And so it's just so important and amazing that you guys are creating that space for men and young men and boys to see a difference, to see a different way of doing things and a different way of handling things. And I think that's incredible. So in the programs, you said you have them as young as elementary school. Do you see people going through your program like in every area? I mean, is it possible to be in that program as a child and then also come back to that program as they get older and just kind of like stay connected with you throughout their life, really?
Yeah, that's spot on. That is
Yeah.
the genetic makeup of the Bro Experience, right? So, I don't know if people are into algebra, but the X is the unknown, which,
Mhm.
in our logo or in our work, right? Like we're always searching for that Y or that X, that unknown. But then the experience is like we're saying, once we meet you, you never have to leave this community. And it's interesting that you bring that up because we do have 2 young men, they're twins, and they have been with us since we started our summer camp, and now they are 13. So they're getting ready to move into this transition of old, teenagers, preteens, and like, what does it look like? And they often ask us, like, oh, is this it for us? And we're like, no. No, it's not over. Now you're going to move into another phase where, because you've been with us and you have this different level of sense of self that most boys their age don't have, now you get to work for the organization, right? Like you get to do summer youth with the little bros that you once was, or you get to come to the Bro Space Wellness Center and engage in more deeper conversations about the world and life, and they have a different level of insight. So that is like the through line of the work. But no matter where we meet our participants, it is often like, once you stick with us, you always have access. Like, we think of our organization like a beacon, right? And as long as you go out in the world, right, our light is always on. So when you on your way back to home, you know where to come to. So I think that we don't really have timelines on our programs. We just create the space, and the space is.
That's amazing. I love that. That's incredible. So, you know, after looking at your website, after talking to you, you started this organization. And from the time you started it to now, it has absolutely exploded. And I
Tell
mean,
me about it.
you have been on so many news outlets, the Kelly Clarkson show, like you've been all over. Did you at all expect it to turn out like this? Or were you thinking, did you go into it thinking, I'm gonna help a few people? And then, it just went from there.
Um, well, I'll say this. I'm not shocked that I am experiencing the things that I'm experiencing because I think that I thought very intentional about the platform that I wanted to create. And I knew, unfortunately, that no one wanted to really embark on the social emotional needs of men. And I said to myself, if I can just stick in and create the space and have the tolerance and be willing to allow this thing to flourish into what I envisioned, then the world will start to follow. And it took a strong 3 or 4 years with like not having anyone pay attention. People act like what we were doing was like, oh, what are you doing? Mentorship? Or is this juvenile justice work? No one wanted to label it as mental health services or wellness support because it was too mushy. And I made sure that I stayed the course. And I think that in 2025, it just, for some reason, people started to get it. And people started to understand that we are 10 toes deep into this work of cultivating emotional regulation for men, and particularly black and brown boys. And they deserve it, and it's not an anomaly. And I think that over time, everyone started to follow. And it's funny because even with the Kelly Clarkson show, when they first met us, they wanted us to have like extreme cases of guys. And I'm like, no, we're not here to like exploit anyone's story, right? Like tell the story of the guy that's actually doing well. And that's how I was able to have the two young men who I worked with since they both were 14 sit with me on stage, right? Because that's the story that we need to see because we don't have representation of that. So yeah, I think that the time that we put in was intentional, and we didn't pivot based on what people thought that they wanted to see in community because we knew what our boys needed. And now everyone wants to be a part of the process, and we're excited to let everyone in now. Like, hey, welcome.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, and it's been
So
amazing.
I want to know what challenges you face just leading a nonprofit. But a specific challenge, I guess, I want to know is because of how long it took you to get to where you are and really to get that support. Are you still feeling or getting any pushback on the fact that it is dealing with mental health?
Yeah, I think there's like this subtle challenge that I've been dealing with where in one breath, people who get it, they get it and they love it. And I think that on the other hand, a lot of people, again, just don't see the tolerance. And oftentimes, unfortunately, it's not provocative enough for people. So I think some of the challenges is like, always wondering if we will have the funding to sustain and really grow programming that is robust in a way where it's not necessarily tied to someone's career readiness or a mentorship program to go to college. Like we are an organization that is dealing with the emotional being. And I don't know, because it's not tied to those things, I often think that we struggle with trying to get institutions and corporations and bigger donors to be a part of the process because they want that thing. But we've been staying focused, and I'm like, when you start to see happy people who are not using substances or they are able to sustain work and opportunities that they get, not just given jobs and then they blow in the jobs in 6 months, I think that people will really start to pay attention. So the struggle is just really trying to get more people to get on board. And I mean people who have access to the resources and the funding that will help us sustain as an organization.
Absolutely. And guys, if you're watching this, what he's talking about is so common and familiar in nonprofits everywhere. Really, just getting and finding that support, and that is really something that Accordis loves to be able to step in and help with. So, one thing we like to tell our clients is that it's incredibly important for you to get your vision and your mission across to people, because if you can get your vision across in a way that they can connect with you, then you'll start seeing the donations come in, and that's something we can help with. We can help with that marketing, the social media. We can help with any of the back end stuff. And so if you are an organization and you need a little support in those areas, feel free to reach out to us. Our link will be at the end of this podcast, and we would love to hear from you. But continuing on with our conversation, I want to know, what are your plans, because you have such a big heart and you like to move the needle forward, and you like to keep going, which is incredible, and that's what nonprofits need, because if you stay in the same place and just sit still for too long, you're never going to see growth. And so, what are you wanting to do? Where do you want to see yourself in the next few years?
Yeah, yeah. So I have three distinct goals that I'm focusing on over the next 3 to 5 years. So funny enough, we're moving into our 6th year, and I think next week will be year 6. So for the next three, one, I want to grow a board that is more operational. I think that we started with the board with the friends and the families and the close colleagues. So we're trying to cycle those amazing people into more of an advisory role and bring on people who want to see the mission and vision, flourish a little bit more. The second thing is for 2027 and 28, I want to build like sustainability. So I think that the staff that we have now, we went from myself and maybe two other people to now a staff of 14, yeah, including consultants and things like that. But for the next 2 years, I want to just build sustainability where we can operate without having to think about funding or chasing money within the year that we're operating. And then the third thing that we want to do is we are in an amazing space. It's 4,500 square feet, but we look to open up the first Bro Wellness Center, like a physical edifice, physical space that will have primary care, mental health services, specifically for men and men of color here in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. Nothing like it exists across the country. I've been doing research and like a full-fledged third wellness space for men, so that way they have a sense of self when they come inside of the clinic to get support, and then also running like the same programming but adding a full-fledged fatherhood program with transitional housing for dads. Many dads in New York City are not head of household, or many of them don't have leases, unfortunately. So they call them couch surfers because they don't have that stability. So how do we help young fathers from 18 to 30 get stable with transitional housing? So those are the three goals that I have for the next 3 years.
Wow, that's
Yep.
amazing. I love that idea. I think that's incredible. I hope to see that soon. I
Yeah.
really do, because I think that's incredible. So, how can people help you get there? What can people do? I mean, not only, they can give, but how can they give? And if they're in your area, how can they serve?
Yeah, absolutely. I think let's start with the service part first because I'm really big with that. I think that when people really tap in and they can roll their sleeves up and support us, it makes them want to invest more. And I don't call it giving; I call it investing, because when you are pouring seed into a young person, especially a young man, it changes the whole texture of community. So oftentimes we ask people to come and volunteer. We do a lot of community work where we go out and we engage community by giving out wellness kits to fathers. Just a few days ago, we gave out laptops to dads, to young fathers. So we're often looking for volunteers who want to come and just help us do that type of work. And then if you have a special skill set that can help, from a system standpoint, help the organization grow, I'm always open to, having people come in and be thought partners in our work. And we also have a wellness center. So we do workshops. We hold movie screenings. We try to like create this kind of like fun environment so people can come and help us make sure that our space is still protected when we have young people and families here to do the workshops that we do. But then from an investment standpoint, how are we? I'm really looking for people to subscribe and be like monthly recurring donors to the work. So that way we make sure that the refrigerator and the space is always stocked. So when the young men come, they can get a soda, juice, or some chips, and they don't have to worry about it. And I think really getting people to subscribe and invest on a monthly basis shows that we have a community. So no matter what happens in government or the texture of different foundations opening and closing, we can sustain as a community because people are investing on an individual level. So like I'm looking to try to get over 150 people to be recurring donors to the organization because I think the people power is the most important.
Yeah, that's incredible. Guys, I want to encourage you, just as someone who has had a couple conversations now and really dug in and looked through their website and all the great things they're doing, I want to encourage you to go check out their website, partner with them, give to them. We're going to have a link to their website at the end of this show. Just check out what they're doing. It's incredible. They have such incredible goals and they're doing wonderful, wonderful things. So please go check them out. And if you're in their area, reach out, see how you can get involved, where you would best fit. I know how important it is for nonprofits to have those people serving alongside them. And so I know they would love to have you. It has been so wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us on our podcast today.
No, thank you. Thank you so much. This is amazing, and it is always good when great people like you create spaces for other great people. So, keep up the great work.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we will see you next time on the podcast. Thank you for watching.
Peace, everyone.